This is Mike Franklin, a property tax guy, and today I'm going to tell you about an experience I had with my state senator and my congressman. State Senator Mannion, he's a Democrat. He's running for Congress, and Congresswoman Tenney is my congressperson. And so what happened was a couple of years ago, a few years ago, I can't even remember, I had donated some money to Mannion's campaign for some reason. I can't even remember why. And he called me on the phone. And as you probably know, I'm not too happy with the way the Freedom of Information law works and the transparency of our judiciary. They don't want to allow the recording of hearings. You try to foil data from the assessors. They want to evade you. And so that kind of thing is always on my mind. And so, out of the blue, I get a phone call from State Senator Mannion, wanted to let me know he was running for Congress and he was looking for my support. And and so I recorded the conversation, and I will post that up, and you can watch that or listen to that separately. Unfortunately, it's not a video; it's just an audio recording, so it won't be that exciting. But it's an interesting conversation, and so I wanted to get a copy of his calendar. I'd seen an auditor called Honor Your Oath. He's one of the longest standing auditors in the country, and he is really good. It's called Honor Your Oath. And he went to a Democrat's state senator's office and asked for their calendar. And the people in the state senator's office kind of went crazy, flipping right out. And so he went to a Republican state senator's office, did the same thing, and she, the assistant or secretary or whatever her title was, she's there. It took her a second to comprehend it. She just turned around and said, "Okay." She went back and she printed it and she handed it to him. And that's the difference between those two. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I foiled my state senator's calendar, and I get responses from these a lawyer denying it. So then I have to appeal, and I get contacted by another lawyer, denying me all this, legal jargon and whatnot. And so pretty much gave me the impression that my state senator wasn't interested in open government. But anyway, coincidentally, so I had done that. They denied me. And so, that was done a few months ago, probably. So then finally I get I get this call out of the blue from my state senator because I was on his donor list, and he's pitching me for my support. And so I start to get into the, that they didn't respond to my FOIL. And we get talking about open government and so on and so forth. And he says, "Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you." So this morning I foiled his calendar again, and we'll see how his response is. And so it'll be interesting to see how he responds to this one. But he didn't respond to the last one particularly well. And I told him about that I'd called his office regarding, the administrative judges not allowing recording of assessment hearings. There's nothing more public about assessment hearings, and how the judge says that civil rights law, prevents, apparently protects assessors and hearing officers from being accountable to the public. Absolutely absurd. He also said that I was not a legitimate member of the press. Apparently, he doesn't understand that the government can't regulate the press, and they certainly can't dictate, who's legitimate press and who is not. Because if that were the case, they could say CNN is legitimate and Fox is not, or Fox is legitimate and CNN is not. They can't get into that. I am a legitimate member of the press, and the press has no rights that are above and beyond what the public has. It's just that the government can't regulate the press. That's what the First Amendment is all about. And of course, First Amendment is the right to record the it's been established that in the courts that the public has the right to record public officials in the course of their duty in public spaces. So so the court considers that the hearing, they brought it into a courtroom. When I asked to record it, they forced me to go to a courtroom surrounded by court cops to make certain that I don't record, because previously they're all done in conference rooms, no court police, nothing like that. And probably 300 cases were always in a conference room. As soon as I asked to record, it goes in a courtroom, and I'm surrounded by cops hovering over me to make certain I'm not recording. And and so that's what I was talking to him about. And he goes, I agree with you. He says, well, we'll see if I get the response to my to my FOIL request for his calendar. So I thought, I shouldn't just pick on the Democrats. I thought it'd be fair to do the same thing to a Republican. So I was trying to think who I should contact, and it just popped in my mind. I'll contact my Congresswoman Tenney, and I had actually voted for her, is my recollection. So I called up her office in Oswego, because nowhere on her website is there an email address. So they want you to fill out these forms and stuff, and it's like, that's not the way I want to do it. And so I called up her office in Oswego, and they wanted to know who I was, and what organization I'm with, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I would just like an email address to submit a FOIL to. And so the guy finally asked me what it is that I asked for, what I was looking for. And so I told him I wanted a copy of the calendar, or the Congresswoman's calendar. And so he told me that that's handled down in DC, and he gave me a phone number to call. So I called the phone number down there, and there was an intern. So apparently she's a part-time intern. So she's probably young, and she wanted to know who I was, and she was going to refuse to give me an email address to submit a FOIL unless I told her who I am. And I had to tell her, let me get this straight. I want to submit a FOIL request. FOIL requests don't require, they can be done anonymously. And yet you won't give me the email address to submit a FOIL to unless I tell you who I am. And that went back and forth. And, finally, finally she said that she'd put me in touch with a full-time staffer. So I spoke to the full-time staffer, and I said, yeah, I'm just looking for an email address to submit a FOIL. He says, oh, okay. And he gives me the email address. But then a while later, so I submitted a FOIL request, and it had all my contact information on the bottom. And I wasn't hiding who I am from them. I just did my normal FOIL request. And so I get a call from this guy, and he wanted to know who I was, and the conversation started to get a little heated. And it didn't get heated for me until he told me he was going to report me to the Capitol Police. I said, let me get this right. You're going to report me to the Capitol Police because I asked for an email address to submit a FOIL request. And I said, are you going to report me to the FBI as well? And so anyway, we kept talking, and he was telling me about the security concerns, and that he personally gets death threats, and that the Congresswoman regularly gets death threats, and that they can't have her schedule being out for people to know where she is at any given time, which I can appreciate that. And you know what? Maybe that's what State Senator Mannion's office, should have said, instead of just saying, sending you all these legalese nonsense from a lawyer. They are spending money on lawyers for no reason whatsoever. But it was an interesting conversation I had with that guy, and I'm posting that on as well. Again, it's an audio, there's no video, so it's not that exciting, but it's an interesting conversation. it started out really kind of crazy. But we started to get on the same page, and I can appreciate where it is that he's coming from. Part of it was his royal attitude, telling me it's not a foil, it's a foya, he says. It's like, all right, whatever. And every state calls their foil something different, but he's right. I don't know what the FOIA law is, federal FOIA, because I only deal in state law for assessment matters. But what they're saying is that the Congress is not subject to any of that. So there's no such thing as open government when it comes to Congress. I guess they can do whatever they damn well please, and that's kind of the problem that we have today. So it was an interesting, you learn something every time you do this stuff, and so I learned a little bit more about their perspective, and I can appreciate that, and so it was a pretty interesting conversation that I had with the guy, and frankly, thus far, the Republicans have been more responsive than the Democrats, from my experience so far. But I think I'll continue to experiment and see what kind of experiences that we have. But again, I'm going to put one for Tenney, Congresswoman Tenney, the conversation I had with those people, and I'm going to put the one that I had with State Senator Mannion when he called me on the phone. And so keep an eye out for it. This is Mike Franklin, the property tax guy and assessor audit.